Think about it for a second. The most terrifying moments, they almost always start out with completely mundane everyday situations. You're just hanging out at a bar, you're waiting for a bus, maybe you're just sleeping in your own bed. We let our guard down because we trust our routines, and urban legends survive precisely because they prey on those exact everyday moments. As we're about to see, it really only takes one slight deviation from the norm for a completely ordinary day to pivot into an absolute nightmare. All right, let's jump right into this countdown with number 5, the missing cell phone. So we all know this heart-dropping feeling, right? You're out with friends at a loud, crowded local bar, you do the classic pocket pat, and your phone is just gone. So you follow the universal lost phone protocol. You realize it's missing, you retrace your steps, and when you have absolutely no luck, you just borrow a friend's device to call it. The logic here grounds us completely in reality because we would all do exactly this. But it's what happens after 2 rings that changes everything. Someone actually answers the phone, but they don't say hello. Instead, the narrator just hears this low, raspy giggle. And then, click, they hang up. And they didn't answer again for the rest of the night. Now, you'd probably assume some creep at the bar picked it up and was just messing with you, right? That's what the narrator thought. They gave it up as a lost cause and finally headed back home. And this brings us to the terrifying realization of this story. When the narrator walks into their bedroom, the phone is laying right there on the nightstand, literally exactly where they had left it before rushing out the door. Now, think about the math here for a second. It's absolutely crucial. If that phone never left the house, the person who answered it with that raspy giggle wasn't a thief at a loud bar. It was an unknown intruder sitting quietly inside the narrator's empty home. It's literally the ultimate, the call is coming from inside the house urban legend, but this time it was entirely real. Okay, moving right along to number 4, the empty school bus. When you're a kid, the school bus is basically a fixture of safety. You know the route, you know the kids. A normal morning means stepping onto a familiar bus packed with noisy classmates. But for our narrator, who happened to be the very last pickup on the route, a bus pulled up on this specific morning that was entirely empty, and it was driven by a pushy stranger. The driver smiled and just told the kid to hop on. The child immediately got a bad feeling in their guts and asked where the other kids were. The driver's response was chilling. He just said, "We will go get them now, just get on." And he started getting more and more pushy about it. Thankfully, the kid trusted their gut and just kept saying no, until the driver finally shrugged and drove off. A few minutes later, the real school bus pulled up. The narrator went to school like nothing even happened, but when they casually mentioned it to their parents that night, total panic. The parents immediately scrambled to make phone calls, and it confirmed just how incredibly close a call this really was. A predator had actively mapped out that entire bus route just to isolate the very last pickup. Next up, we have number 3, the downstairs neighbor. Now, this story really explores the terrors of apartment living. So after renting a unit in this newly renovated building, our narrator notices their 45-year-old neighbor next door is just blasting radio shows all night long. And upon looking inside her unit, they find a total sensory nightmare. Pitch black windows letting in zero light, walls entirely covered in crosses, these damp, yellow-stained carpets. And then outside the next day, she was holding a rotting dead dog in a plastic bag in the blazing heat. The smell of death was just overpowering. Now, it's one thing to have a, deeply eccentric or even disturbed neighbor. You can avoid them. You can just lock your door. But what happens when that fragile boundary is broken? The very next night, while the narrator's girlfriend was staying over, the environment shifted from weird to an immediate, terrifying threat. The narrator wakes up in the middle of the night to see this shadowy figure standing right next to the bed, just staring at them while they slept. At first, they totally thought it was a hallucination. But then, the shadow spoke. It was the neighbor. She had completely broken in during the night, holding something unidentifiable in her hand. Who knows how long she had just stood there watching them. And before walking out, she simply said, "You should lock your doors at night." Absolutely terrifying, right? Well, it escalates. The narrator asked another tenant about her the next day, only to discover she had broken into his apartment too. He got up from watching TV to get a snack and found her hiding right behind his couch, just staring at him holding a literal power drill. It suddenly dawned on the narrator what she had been holding in their dark bedroom. The police eventually revealed she was a violent schizophrenic who was off her medication. Our narrator literally had to stake her out for 2 full days, just waiting for her to run out of cigarettes. When she finally walked to a convenience store at 2 a.m., the police swooped in with a special van, and in less than a minute, she was gone to an institution, leaving behind nothing but nightmares. All right, that brings us to number 2, the late night commute. This story perfectly taps into that very specific paranoia of working the night shift in a totally empty industrial district. The dread builds so fast here. At 11:30 p.m., a massive rock just smashes right through the office window. The panicked narrator sprints out to their car, gets in, and realizes it had been unlocked the entire time. Sweeping the backseat for an intruder, like the classic urban legend, right? They find nothing and head home. But they're still super amped up by 12:30 a.m., so they take a moonlight bike ride to blow off some steam. So it's a nice night. The narrator is just enjoying the moonlight, pedaling along, when they hear someone riding up behind them. Sticking to the side of the road, they let the cyclist pass. But the stranger creeps by incredibly slowly. And right as they are side by side in the dark, the stranger turns and shoots the narrator a smile that is purely insane. The narrator literally flinched. Then boom, all the puzzle pieces just slam together in rapid succession. The narrator realizes the creep is riding their mom's stolen bike. They turn around and sprint home in a total panic. When they arrive, not only is the bike missing from the house, but the back left door of their car is sitting wide open. The rock thrower had been hiding in the backseat all along and actually followed them into the dark. And this brings us to our final, most chilling story of the explainer. Number 1, the 4:17 a.m. call. Picture this. You're working the third shift at a campground, sitting inside this tiny 8 by 8 foot shack surrounded by pitch black woods. The previous worker leaves you with one really weird warning. A nearby payphone rings exactly once every single night at precisely 4:17 a.m. When our narrator finally hears it, it doesn't even sound normal. It sounds muffled, almost like the ring is submerged in water. There is this agonizingly slow build of curiosity here over several months. During the summer, the narrator just ignores it. By mid-August, they hear the ring, pick it up, and get dead air. But the first week of October, they try one last time. 4:17 hits. The phone rings. They pick up, say hello, and instead of silence, they hear someone violently inhaling through clenched teeth. Seriously, put yourself in their shoes for a second. A rough, gravelly voice speaks through the receiver. It doesn't say hello, it says the narrator's complete name. First, middle, and last. Standing alone in the pitch-dark woods, hearing a total stranger identify you perfectly. The narrator just slammed the phone down. But wait, the final twist to the story is what happened next. The narrator hit *69 to trace the call, totally expecting it to be some local prankster. But the location discrepancy is staggering. The narrator was in Indiana. The number traced to an unknown caller all the way in California. Someone thousands of miles away was specifically tracking them at exactly 4:17 a.m. every single night. These source stories, they all start with something so incredibly normal, yet they end in sheer paranoia. We tell ourselves urban legends to try and make sense of our fears. But stories like this, they prove that sometimes our worst fears are entirely real. So I have to ask, if you were standing alone in the dark and a stranger thousands of miles away whispered your full name, would you ever look at a ringing phone the same way again? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me. Stay safe out there and definitely double check those locks tonight.